People always say that enemies destroy homes. But in Ada's case, it wasn't an enemy. It was her best friend. The same woman who stood beside her on her wedding day, smiling widely for pictures. The same woman who hugged her and said, "Don't worry, Ada, your marriage will last forever." But what Ada never understood was that some smiles hide teeth sharper than knives. And by the time she finally realized what Vanessa had done, her home was already broken. Completely. Irreversibly. And the worst part? She helped destroy it herself.
You're watching African Stories That Touch.
Ada met Vanessa long before marriage ever entered her mind. They met in their second year at the university in Lagos. Vanessa was the kind of girl people noticed the moment she entered the room. She was tall, beautiful, confident, and always surrounded by people. Ada was quieter, kind, soft-spoken, the type of person who listened more than she talked. Yet somehow the two girls became inseparable. They studied together, ate together, shared secrets late into the night. Vanessa often joked that Ada was the only person who truly understood her. And Ada believed it, because for years, Vanessa seemed like the sister she never had. When Ada first started dating Chinedu, Vanessa was the first person she told. At that time, Chinedu was just a young man trying to build his life. He worked as a delivery driver for a small electronics company. His salary was modest. His clothes were simple. His dreams were bigger than his wallet. But Chinedu loved Ada deeply. Anyone who saw them together could tell. He listened to her, protected her, encouraged her when she doubted herself. Sometimes he would finish work late in the evening and still travel across town just to see her for 15 minutes.
To Chinedu, Ada wasn't just a girlfriend. She was his future. And Ada knew it. She often told Vanessa, "Chinedu may not be rich yet, but his heart is gold." Vanessa always smiled when she heard those words, but something about that smile was never quite right. At first, Ada didn't notice. She only heard the supportive words Vanessa said afterward. "Ada, you are lucky to have someone who cares for you like that. Ada, many men these days don't even know how to treat a woman well." But sometimes, Vanessa would add something else. Something small, something subtle. "Ada, but do you think he'll ever become successful?" It was always said lightly, almost jokingly. Ada would laugh it off. "He's hardworking. He will succeed." Vanessa would nod slowly. "Yes, but life in Lagos is expensive." Those conversations seemed harmless at the time, but seeds don't look dangerous when they are first planted. 3 years later, Ada and Chinedu got married. The wedding was modest but beautiful. Family members filled the hall. Music echoed through the building. People danced until their feet ached. Vanessa stood proudly beside Ada as the chief bridesmaid. If anyone had taken a picture of that moment, they would have seen two smiling women hugging tightly. They would never have guessed that one of them would eventually destroy everything. After the wedding, Ada and Chinedu moved into a small apartment in Surumere. The apartment wasn't luxurious. The living room was small. The kitchen barely fit 2 people at once. Sometimes the electricity disappeared for hours. But the house was filled with something far more valuable than comfort: peace. Chinedu worked hard every day. Ada started a small online clothing business. Together, they slowly built their life. Sometimes they struggled. Sometimes money was tight. But they faced those challenges together. At night, they would sit on their balcony eating roasted corn and laughing about their future plans. They talked about buying a car, saving for a bigger house, raising children who would grow up surrounded by love. Ada felt lucky, truly lucky, until Vanessa started visiting more often. At first, her visits seemed innocent. She would stop by after work, bring snacks, chat with Ada, laugh with Chinedu. But gradually, something about those visits began to change. Vanessa started noticing things, small things. "Ada, is this the same sofa you bought when you moved in?"
Yes, Ada said casually. Vanessa frowned slightly. You guys should upgrade. A married couple should live more comfortably. Ada shrugged. We're saving first. Vanessa didn't argue. She simply smiled. Then one day, she said something that stayed in Ada's mind longer than it should have. Ada, don't you ever wish your husband could give you a more luxurious life? Ada frowned. What do you mean? Vanessa leaned back in her chair. Look at you. Beautiful, intelligent, hardworking, yet you're still managing like this? Ada laughed awkwardly. Vanessa, every couple starts somewhere. Vanessa nodded slowly. Yes, but not everyone starts this low. Ada felt uncomfortable, but she pushed the thoughts aside. Because Vanessa was her friend, her best friend. Surely she meant well, right? Weeks passed. Vanessa continued visiting, and little by little, her words began to change. One evening, she said, Ada, I saw your husband's car today. Chinedu had recently bought an old second-hand car. He was proud of it. Ada was proud too. It's not bad, Vanessa continued, but honestly, that car is older than our friendship. Ada forced a laugh. It still works? Vanessa sighed. Ada, I just hate seeing you settle.
That word hit Ada harder than expected. Settle? Yes. Vanessa leaned closer. You deserve more. For the first time, Ada didn't respond because something about Vanessa's tone made her feel strangely uneasy. But Vanessa wasn't finished. Ada, let me ask you something honestly. Ada looked up. If another man came tomorrow, a man who could give you a better life, a bigger house, a better car, luxury vacations, would you stay with Chinedu? Ada felt her heart tighten. Vanessa, what kind of question is that? Vanessa raised her hands defensively. I'm just saying, love is important, but life is also about comfort. Ada shook her head. I didn't marry Chinedu for money. Vanessa smiled again, that same strange smile. Yes, but one day you might wish you had. That night, Ada couldn't sleep. She lay beside her husband, staring at the ceiling. For the first time since their wedding, she began to notice things she had never noticed before. The apartment really was small. The furniture really was old. The car really was outdated. And suddenly, Vanessa's words didn't feel so harmless anymore. They felt like questions. Questions Ada didn't know how to answer. Beside her, Chinedu slept peacefully, unaware that something invisible had entered their home. Something dangerous. Doubt. And once doubt enters a marriage, it rarely leaves quietly. But Ada still didn't know the truth. She didn't know that Vanessa's visits were never accidental. She didn't know that Vanessa had been watching her life for years, waiting, watching, comparing. Because deep inside, Vanessa had always wanted the one thing Ada possessed, Chinedu. And now, she had finally started her plan. For several days after that conversation, Ada tried to push Vanessa's words out of her mind. But thoughts have a strange way of returning when you least expect them, especially the dangerous ones. The following Saturday, Ada and Chinedu went to a wedding reception for one of Chinedu's colleagues. The event took place at a large event center in Victoria Island. Bright lights, luxury cars lined outside. Well-dressed guests filled the hall. Ada wore her best dress, a soft blue gown she had saved money to buy months earlier. Chinedu wore his only black suit. To Ada, he still looked handsome, still looked like the man she fell in love with. But something had changed. As they walked into the hall, Ada noticed the difference between them and the other couples. Some women wore glittering jewelry. expensive handbags, high heels that probably cost more than Ada's monthly clothing inventory. Their husbands stood beside them confidently, men who looked comfortable in wealth. Ada suddenly felt smaller. She hadn't felt this way before, but Vanessa's voice echoed quietly in her mind. Don't you ever wish your husband could give you more? Chinedu leaned toward her. You look beautiful tonight. Ada forced a smile. Thank you. But her eyes had already started wandering around the room, comparing, measuring, questioning. Later that evening, they sat at a table with several guests. One of the men, a businessman who owned several electronic stores, began talking loudly about his recent trip to Dubai. His wife laughed proudly as he described luxury hotels and expensive shopping malls. Someone asked Chinedu about his work. He smiled politely. I work with a logistics company. I manage deliveries. The businessman nodded briefly before returning to his story. Ada suddenly felt embarrassed. She didn't know why. Chinedu had never hidden his job. He had always been proud of his hard work. But that night, Ada heard something different in his voice. Something humble, almost apologetic. And again, Vanessa's words crept back into her thoughts. Ada, you deserve more. When they returned home that night, Ada was unusually quiet. Chinedu noticed. You didn't enjoy the party? Ada shrugged. It was fine. Chinedu studied her face. You've been quiet since we left. Ada hesitated. Then the words slipped out before she could stop them. Do you ever think about doing something bigger? Chinedu frowned slightly. What do you mean? I mean, maybe starting your own business. Chinedu leaned back on the sofa. I've thought about it. So, why haven't you? He looked surprised. Starting a business requires money, Ada. I know. So, for now, I'm saving slowly. Ada sighed. How long will that take? Chinedu stared at her carefully. Where is this coming from? Ada immediately regretted speaking. Nowhere. But the question had already been asked, and questions like that have a way of staying in the air. The next afternoon, Vanessa visited again. Ada told her about the wedding. Vanessa listened quietly. Then she shook her head. Ada, this is exactly what I've been trying to explain to you. What? You are living below your potential. Ada frowned. Vanessa. No, listen to me. Vanessa leaned forward seriously. You are a beautiful woman, intelligent too. Yes, you could be living a completely different life. Ada crossed her arms. You are making it sound like my marriage is a mistake. Vanessa sighed softly. Of course you do. Then she added quietly. But love alone doesn't pay bills. Ada did not respond, but the silence between them said more than words ever could. Over the following weeks, Vanessa continued visiting, and each time she came, she left behind another small seed. One evening, she said, Ada, look at your phone. Ada showed her the screen. It displayed pictures from a social media page. One of Ada's former classmates had just posted photos from a vacation in Greece. Her husband had surprised her with the trip. Vanessa whistled softly. Wow! Ada scrolled through the pictures slowly. Ocean views, luxury hotel rooms, beautiful restaurants. Vanessa leaned closer. Imagine if that was your life. Ada swallowed. That's not my life. Vanessa tilted her head. But it could be. Ada shook her head. I'm not interested in that kind of lifestyle. Vanessa smiled patiently. Ada, everyone says that until they taste it. Then she added softly, You are still young.
Ada looked up. What does that mean? Vanessa shrugged. It means life gives second chances. Ada didn't reply. But that night, she stared at the ceiling again, thinking, comparing, wondering. Meanwhile, Chinedu began noticing the change. Ada had started complaining more often. Small things irritated her. The slow internet, the old sofa, the old car. Even simple things like cooking dinner became arguments. One evening, she said, "I'm tired of managing like this." Chinedu looked confused. "We're not managing badly." Ada laughed bitterly. "You think this is comfortable living?" Chinedu sat quietly. "Ada, when did you start thinking like this?" She didn't answer because she knew exactly when it started. The day Vanessa began planting her ideas. But Ada refused to admit it. Instead, she blamed Chinedu. "You are too comfortable with this life." Chinedu's voice became firm. "I'm working hard for our future." Ada shook her head. "You've been saying that for years." The argument lasted late into the night. For the first time since their wedding, they slept facing opposite directions.
The next morning, Ada called Vanessa. Her voice trembled. "We had a fight." Vanessa's tone sounded calm. "What happened?" Ada explained everything. Vanessa listened carefully. Then she sighed. "Ada, I was afraid this would happen." "What do you mean?" "Some men don't like being pushed." Ada rubbed her forehead. "So what should I do?" Vanessa paused for a moment. Then she said something that would change everything. "Maybe you should show him that you are not afraid to leave." Ada froze. "What?" Vanessa's voice remained gentle. "Sometimes a man only changes when he realizes he could lose you." Ada felt her heart pounding. "You mean threaten divorce?" Vanessa shrugged. "Just make him understand that you deserve better." Ada sat silently. The idea felt dangerous, but strangely, it also felt powerful. And once a dangerous idea enters the mind, it rarely leaves without causing damage. But Ada still didn't know the full truth. She didn't know that Vanessa had been secretly watching Chinedu for years, watching the way he treated Ada, watching the way he protected her, watching the way he loved her. Because deep inside, Vanessa didn't just want to destroy the marriage. She wanted something far worse. She wanted the husband. And very soon, her plan would become far more dangerous. From the moment Vanessa suggested that Ada should make her husband fear losing her, something inside Ada shifted. It was small at first, but small changes can create very big storms. That evening, Ada returned home later than usual. She had spent extra time with Vanessa at a cafe in Yaba. They had talked for hours about life, about success, about marriage. And again, Vanessa kept repeating the same words. "Ada, you deserve more." When Ada finally entered the apartment, Chinedu was already home. He was in the kitchen preparing dinner. The smell of fried rice filled the small apartment. Normally, that smell would make Ada smile. But that night, she felt strangely irritated. Chinedu turned and saw her. "Welcome back," he said warmly. "You're late today." Ada dropped her bag on the table. "I was out with Vanessa." Chinedu nodded. "That's good." He stirred the pot gently. "I made dinner." Ada looked at the simple meal on the stove. Fried rice, fried plantain, chicken. A normal dinner. But suddenly, it looked like proof of something she had been trying to ignore. A simple life. Too simple. "Ada?" Chinedu asked softly. "You seem upset." Ada folded her arms. "Chinedu, do you think this life is enough?" Chinedu frowned slightly. "What life?" Ada said, "This life," gesturing around the small apartment. Chinedu looked around slowly. "Our home?"
Yes, he sighed. Ada, we've talked about this. I'm working hard to improve things. Ada shook her head. But when? Chinedu put down the spoon. What happened today? Ada hesitated. Then Vanessa's voice echoed again in her mind. Show him you are not afraid to leave. Sometimes, Ada said quietly, I feel like I made a mistake. The words hung in the air like a gunshot. Chinedu stared at her. A mistake? Ada looked away. Maybe I should have waited longer before getting married. Chinedu's face tightened. You're saying you regret marrying me? Ada didn't answer. But silence can be louder than words. Chinedu slowly turned back to the stove. The food suddenly lost its smell. The apartment felt colder. For the first time since their wedding, Chinedu felt something he had never felt before. Fear.
Part 2 of this story drops this Tuesday. Do you think Ada is making a mistake? Or is Chinedu really not doing enough? Tell me in the comments.